So I feel for the woman in the story today, even though she's not a real person, she's a made-up example by the Sadducees. There probably were women back then in similar situations, because in those days, women were property. And if she was married to a man and had no sons, then she'd get passed on to the brothers after her husband dies. And if she didn't have any children, specifically male children, she was considered a useless person. And this makes me very sad as a modern woman, because we don't think like that anymore. Or at least we shouldn't think like that anymore. We don't pass women around like property. And there are many other alternatives for having children. Which brings us to the point of this reading, which is not marriage law. It's change. The Sadducees are testing Jesus. They don't believe in the resurrection, but the Pharisees do. So this is the one time that Jesus and the Pharisees agree. So this is a different group questioning Jesus than normal. And even back then, people couldn't agree on theological matters. And they are a bit sarcastic here, asking who will be married to the woman in the resurrection. And Jesus' answer is pretty simple. It's nobody. Because children of the resurrection will not marry or be given in marriage. This woman will be free to be her own person. I imagine that if she were real, she wouldn't be very happy. So why would she want to be stuck being unhappy for eternity? Now, is Jesus saying that we're not going to see our spouses and loved ones again? No, he's not saying that specifically. He doesn't say that we won't see our dear ones again. He's saying that in the resurrection, life will not be marked by the same features as this life. That's the point. Life in the resurrection is different. It's not just an extension of our current existence. It's something completely new. Now, in the afterlife, or the resurrection, or the kingdom, or heaven, or whatever you want to call it, it's not going to be the same old thing. And that's the Sadducees' mistake. They would be correct if God were bound by all of our earthly constraints. But of course, no matter how much we try to put God into a box, God is not bound by our same constraints. God is more. And what do we want our resurrection to look like? Are you completely content with everything in this world? If you are, that's great. But I suspect that most of us would like at least a few things to be different. Now, the Sadducees in the text are satisfied with their own lives. They're pretty rich and powerful, But not everybody was so fortunate, like the woman. Now, I can't tell you what the afterlife looks like. No one can. And at some point in religion and theology, we come to the end of our understanding. And we just have to be comfortable with not knowing for sure. But we do have a promise here from Jesus. A promise that the resurrection will be different than our lives now, and it will be better. So how do we relate the text to us now? It's all well and good to think of the afterlife, but that doesn't really do anything now for us, does it? We have to apply the scriptures to our current lives, which is part of our calling. And I think part of the message today is that change is inevitable. Clinging to the old ways of doing things is not necessarily helpful to us in our future endeavors. I'm reminded of a movie from 2011 by Woody Allen called Midnight in Paris. Anyone seen that one? Okay. So the main character is Owen Wilson, and he's a writer, and he's having writer's block, and he longs for the 1920s when he thought that was the bee's knees. Everything was great in the 20s. If he could have just been born in the 20s, it would be great. So through this magical realism that we get, he ends up in the 1920s and meets all his heroes and lives life. And then he meets a woman there And she talks all about how she longs for the 1890s because the 1890s was just the most perfect time. And if she had the choice, she would go back. And then as he's experiencing the 1920s, he realizes that it wasn't so perfect. And then he realizes by being stuck in his nostalgia for the 20s, he's missing out on his own life. And he can't reach his full potential as a writer because he keeps trying to go backwards instead of forwards. So the church does this all the time, and the government too. People talk about the good old days and how we have to go back to it. And it's good to look at the past and see what worked and what didn't work and hold on to what worked. But we have to acknowledge that, like in the movie, the good old days never happened. Because people then were looking back to their good old days. We can't model our future endeavors entirely on things from the past. Respecting the past and learning from it is excellent, but moving backwards is not. So we must look towards the future and embrace it, which brings me to convention this weekend. We were at convention, and in Bishop Gates's convention address, of which there are copies in the narthex if you want to read it, he said, I'm paraphrasing, if we get trapped in nostalgia, it keeps us from fully living in the present and creating a new future. He also said that looking at the church from the past does not make us the church of the present or the future. And at convention, we discussed and voted on a new mission strategy, which is also in the back of the narthex if you want to read it. It's called Embracing Brave Change. So I invite you all to take a look at it. It's about how the church as an institution can adapt to the changing world. And there are 3 areas: building relationships, engaging the world, and reimagining our congregations. Because as the world changes, which is inevitable, the church has to learn to be a bit more flexible. Now, of course, I'm not saying let's throw everything out and start over. That's ridiculous. Don't hear that. I'm not getting rid of my chasubles. I like them. Our traditions help make us who we are. But if you hold on to a tradition just for the sake of holding on to it, there's a problem there. We always need to keep re-examining why we do the things we do. So let us always keep the past in our hearts, but continue to look forward towards a better future, not only in the resurrection, but in the kingdom of God that we create on earth while we're here. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.